Mixed Up Boss is back, and welcome back to the channel. We've got a lot to talk about the next stage in Mixed Up Boss's life. So I'm back over here at Micah's shop, Gaston Automotive Services in Dallas, North Carolina. That's where Casper is staying these days because, well, I don't have room at my house, and plus this is where we work on the truck for the most part. Let's go over Mixed Up Boss and how it all came about, and has it met the goals that I set out for it to do. Mixed Up Boss is a 429 cubic inch small block Ford with Greg Brown's Hammerhead Performance Engine cylinder heads. They're pretty much like a scaled down Boss 9 head to fit a small block Ford, and this thing has 11:1 compression. Small solid roller camshaft in it, nothing extravagant. This thing runs on pump 93 octane, and if you go back and you watch the last video, you can just see just how drivable this truck is. You know, a lot of people think that it's a little bit overkill, but you know, it made over 700 horsepower and right at 600 foot-pounds of torque, you know, on motor. So that's not too bad from 429 inches. But you always want more. And when I built this, I built it with a very strong bottom end because I had plans of putting a power adder on it down the road. I mean, it has a 4340 gun drilled crank in it. Good rods, ARP 2000 bolts, diamond pistons, trend, tool steel, wrist pins in it. Good stuff. So I wanted it to be able to withstand a lot more than the 700 horsepower. It has that Ford Racing Boss 351 block, and probably I would feel safe putting 1100, maybe 1200 horsepower tops, and that would be stretching it on this setup. But you know, it has fulfilled the goal of being able to drive it to the track, run sixes, drive it home. You know, I put over 6,000 miles on this combination since I got it running, and it does great. So for the next phase, of course, you know what's going in it, the E40D that John Cope built, because I've got to be able to harness this extra power that I'm planning on putting to it. The C4 would just die in misery, and I do not want that because we actually have other plans of putting that C4 in a truck that Micah has. So I came over here to Micah's today to actually put antifreeze back in the truck because it's supposed to get down into the 20s here next week, towards the end of the week, for about 3 nights. And I thought it would be a good time to go ahead and do this video talking about the future of what's coming for next year with Casper. A lot of good stuff. So next year is going to be a pretty big deal here in North Carolina when it comes to racing. We're going to have a new class called Truckwarz, Carolina Street Truck, or whatever Sammy decides to call it, or we decide to call it. It basically stemmed out of some street racing that took place down in Mexico, and boy, we've got a cast of characters. I'm actually in a group chat, about 30 different people, and I can't post the content of what's in that chat because I would be banned from YouTube forever. But basically, it's all of us coming together, talking a bunch of junk, and we have some really cool rides that's going to be coming out. We got Team F100, which is comprised of Sambo Price and his Blue Ox, which is actually a F-150, I think. You got Jason Black and Rowdy. You remember those cylinder heads that I ported for the big block Ford? Well, check this out. yeah, I think Rowdy's going to finally live up to its name. And then we get to Brandon Marr. Then you get this F100 that has this really big inch FE motor in it. Have no idea what that thing's going to run, but I tell you, that thing looks sharp. I mean, it's lowered. I mean, he's got bead locks on it. I don't know how that fits into the equation. And then you've got me. So basically the Ford camp, you've got 4 different people coming. You got 3 different types of engine combinations. FE, 385 series, and then you have mixed up Boss. And then you got the other side of the scale, which is Team LS and S10s. Yeah. Sammy, sorry. You just, maybe one day you'll see the light. But it's going to be pretty awesome stuff. There's a lot of cool trucks coming. And the cap for this race is going to be a $5.99. Because we do not want pro mod trucks coming in. It's got tube chassis, things like that. We want it to be legit street trucks, something that people can relate to, wheels up in the air, something that's fun for the spectator to watch, because at the end of the day, it's all about the spectator. It's going to be pretty cool. So now let's get into the going fast part. With Street Wars being capped at a $5.99, that really means that I need to get the truck down into the 660, 670 range to do what I want to do on motor. When I built Mixed Up Boss, I was really going for the pro stock look of 1970-71 Boss 429, and I really captured that look, I think, with the intake and the cast valve covers, and you know the deal. But there comes a point to where looks only go so far, and I'm having to make a choice, and that choice is to go to a different intake. Now, years ago, when I first started my channel, I did a lot of dyno testing with an old Weiand Hi-Ram manifold against a new Holley Hi-Ram. Pretty substantial gains. Casper went from running 750s to 730s with just switching the intake. That's a pretty big deal. So I've had this manifold forever. I've actually had this manifold back before I finished the 393. Now, it's originally a Hi-Ram for a 351. It's an EFI manifold, but that's no problems because I'm going to modify it, put cut plugs in here in case down the road I ever get a wild hair, which I probably never will, cause, well, I'm a carb guy. And this is the old top off of my 393 Hi-Ram. And you see that I've cut the bottom out of it. I'm not going to show underneath the manifold because that's going to be a totally different video coming up showing how I go about modifying this thing to work on this engine. The reason why the base is cut out is because, you know, I've got a lifter valley plate where I can access it in case I need to get to it. You notice I've got these wedge adapters on here, and I get to reuse that, and I will show you why I get to reuse that. When you look at this and you see how the engine is actually angled down, that creates problems. I have tuned this truck with a wideband O2 meter for years. I have not changed the jets in those Edelbrock carburetors because I knew that I was going to be switching intake manifolds, and I did not want to go changing a ton of jets, making changes, and then turn around and have to do it again once I got the new manifold on. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense now. But these things, even running really rich, killed those Dominators hands down. I mean, they drive better. Even though they're really rich going down the track. Let me show you the air fuel log and you'll see what I'm talking about. So as you can see by that footage, it's pretty rich. I mean, so it stands to reason just leaning out those carburetors alone would pick up 1/10.5 probably, if I'm lucky. Let's go look at stage 2. So as you know, I'm a diehard nitrous guy. Just the way it is. I mean, it's what I grew up with. Basically, it's not that I'm against other forms of forced induction, you know, supercharging, turbos. You know, nitrous just always comes easy to me. And when I was thinking about putting a kit on this thing, I was thinking about doing a plate, and then I thought about a fogger plumbed underneath. Typically, a plate kit hits a lot harder than a fogger. It's due to the placement of where the nitrous is injected into the manifold. Downside to it is, once you get up in larger shots of nitrous, distribution in the manifold can become questionable. Then you get, you know, start nipping plugs in certain cylinders, things like that. Fogger, infinite tunability. The downside to it is you got to change individual jets for each runner. But what if you could combine the two things together? That would be almost perfect, wouldn't it? So this is not a new kit out on the market, but what I think of it is, it's probably one of the most innovative kits out on the market. And I have looked everywhere on YouTube looking for people running this setup, and I haven't found it. And so I made a phone call to Nitrous Express. See the hat? Just saying. Talked to Chris in great detail about this kit. Then I talked to Poland, and we come to some terms, and I bought this setup here. And this is what's going to be the key of getting Casper into the 5s. I bought the whole shooting match. I got big purge valve. All of the brackets and stuff for this is in there, the lines. Got the solenoids. But this plate is awesome. It is an actual direct port system that sprays an individual runner into intake manifold. Now the thing about this kit is it's advertised for LS, but the Holley Hi-Ram is a very popular intake manifold out in the world. Not only is it in the LS world, but small block Fords offer it, and it is the same bolt pattern for the lid, which it makes it universal in that regards. I think maybe even the Gen 3 Hemi, don't quote me on that, but it's something worth looking into. Now, the question that I had, the big question is, could I use this in a low pressure situation with carbs? And the answer was yes. I was like, oh yeah, game on. Because I thought, well, maybe they're just using that with EFI, using high pressure to the rails, which I'm going to run a dedicated fuel system to it, fuel supply. That way I can run regular 93 here in the cell, put VP C23 in the little 2-gallon tank up front, run a separate fuel pump just for the nitrous. It's just a smart way of going about doing it. But I was relieved that they had jet settings that work with both low pressure and high pressure. And this is really cool in seeing how this is manufactured. I mean, like I said, I don't know if you can see it, but there's an EDM hole there. This is the nitrous side, which is aiming down into the runner. And when you look at the fuel side, this is the separator plate and gasket. But the fuel injects straight out. So as the fuel's coming out of the rail, it gets sheared by the nitrous, which is a very good thing. I'm going to be really curious to see how well this setup works out. And I think it's going to be the key, because even though I don't have the individual cylinder tuning capabilities, it does inject in each individual runner down in the TunnelRam. TunnelRam Mafia. So this plate is adjustable up to 400 horsepower, which is more than enough, because if my math is right, it's going to take about a 200 to 250 shot to get this thing into the 5-second range. Might have to do some suspension mods, I don't know, but we're going to find out. And we've got 3 months to get it figured out, because the race season starts in March. Now, there is, if you're on the book, there is a group called Carolina Street Truck. If you're interested, go join the group. That way that you can keep track of what's going on with it. And I hope if you're local here that you'll come out and support us guys going out to Shadyside and Mooresville putting on a show, because it's going to be a show, I promise you that. And if Casper gets to put some LS's to rest, that will be worth the watch. So until next time, oh yeah, don't forget to go sub to Sammy's channel and give him a hard time saying he ain't got nothing for Casper. Do that for me. Anyways, till next time, this is Andy from Unity Motorsports Garage. We will catch you later.